Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you CM Punk's side of the AEW Chaos story.
Multiple AEW suspensions and major changes to tonight's AEW Dynamite.
CM Punk might have been injured before the Brawl in AEW.
And a rumour killer on a top AEW star leaving the promotion. I'm Adam Wilborn.
And I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
We're talking about CM Punk again.
Yeah, no surprise this morning.
Of course we are. This is one of the biggest wrestling stories of the past few years, and it continues to develop. I would expect something more on this quite soon as well. There's stuff going on. But basically,
I'm just refreshing Twitter constantly going, here we go.
When every guy is like tweeting, oh, crumbs, and things of that nature.
Sean Ross Sapp, Brian Alvarez, just eyes emojis. Don't do this to me.
Yeah, it's teasing. It's teasing. But yes, okay, so Dave Meltzer reported yesterday on Wrestling Observer Radio that basically the question of who started the brawl varies from witness to witness. Some people were saying that the Young Bucks barged into the locker room, they were overly aggressive, all of that stuff. Some people blame the EVPs. Some people have said that Punk, like, they came in and Punk just started throwing punches. So there's differing levels of blame across the board. Different accounts depending on who you speak to. So that's why it's a really difficult situation to draw conclusions on. Fightful have kind of published here CM Punk and Ace Steel's side of the story, which I think is important to cover in the interest of balance. So let's talk about this. Let's go through this report here published on Fightful Select. The Young Bucks, per this account, per sources, are alleged to have gone to Punk's locker room following the scrum where he obviously ethered everybody.
Yep.
They started knocking on his door. All right, Punk's bloodied. He's tired. He's had this long pay-per-view match.
He's eaten lots of muffins.
He's eaten too many muffins, man. He's had this long pay-per-view match with Jon Moxley. He's had this emotional press conference. He didn't open the door, and according to this account, this version of events, the Bucks started pounding on the door and then, and I quote, kicked the door down.
Wow.
So they kicked in the door, waving the 4-4. The notorious, what would they be? They're not large, are they? You can't call them Notorious B.I.G. I don't know what they are. The Notorious B.U.C.K.S.
Yeah, that works.
Where am I going? Tangent. But that's his Biggie's best song, Kick
Boom.
the Door. Anyway, fight me, comment section. Ready to Die's the best album, folk. All over the place. Now, per the Punk Steel account, Matt Jackson threw the first punch and missed. Punk threw one back. Of course, per the accounts, Punk is alleged to have thrown at least one punch at Matt Jackson. Nick was taking all this in as it happened, and Kenny Omega and Ace Steel forced themselves into the locker room. Fightful also note that Ace Steel's wife was in the room at the same time. Now, Dave Meltzer reported yesterday that Ace Steel's wife is currently suffering from a broken leg and therefore has hindered movement. So if some chaos was going around her, she would find it very hard to move. That's what Dave reported on the Wrestling Observer Radio. Steel, Ace has claimed that this is what set him off, that his wife being in the room is what set him off. He was trying to protect her.
Yeah, she might have been getting barged out of the way.
You never know what could have happened in that situation, right? And this is apparently why he ended up throwing a steel chair at Nick. He bit Kenny. He pulled Kenny's hair. Even though there are differing accounts on this, what started this story, Dave reported yesterday that everyone is united in saying that those three events did happen. The chair, the biting, and the hair pulling, and as well Punk punching Matt Jackson at least once, whether he threw the first one or not. And it stated that initially Kenny Omega didn't seem as upset as the others, so things clearly spiraled. The man was bitten, for goodness sakes. The confrontation has been described as very long, and the back and forth talk continued after the main melee. Now, Sean Ross Sapp has also tweeted, part of this report, with regards to Punk's AEW future, there's talk that him and Steel are done with the promotion. It would take some serious stuff to get them back in at this point, apparently, but nothing's been made official yet. If that does get made official, we'll be right here with the news. Now, Sapp, Sean said on Twitter as well, right now, AEW talent have not been told anything official. Almost everyone I have spoken to believes that CM Punk will have to go or make major amends to remain with the company. A lot of the talent haven't arrived where Dynamite is broadcasting from yet, but the heat on Punk is unreal. So yeah, it's still rolling, baby.
Yeah, and I'm just going to roll into my story because there's no point in me really speculating on it. Like you say,
and then I'll roll into my third one.
Exactly. These are just, we can give you all the information that we know and you can make up your own mind. But obviously tonight, It's Wednesday night, you know what I mean?
There's a wrestling show tonight,
Yeah,
isn't there?
it's AEW Dynamite, and, well, it's much changed, as you could probably guess, AEW Dynamite, following the events of the fallout from All Out, as we are all calling it now, or at least I am, because I like rhyming. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer. Yes. Oh, yeah, remember that. Has revealed that suspensions have been handed out in the wake of the fight between Bucks, Omega, Punk, and Steel. Who exactly is suspended, I should say, is unclear, and there's no word on how long they are suspended for. But as a result of everything that's happened, Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley have both been penciled into the show sort of as a consequence of all this. Whether they're going to be wrestling or appearing or whatever, no one knows as of yet. Thus far, confirmed for AEW Dynamite, 2 matches. The trios match between Best Friends and Orange Cassidy and Death Triangle, and of course that ROH Pure Championship match between Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. Of course, you would expect on a post-pay-per-view episode to see, I don't know, inaugural trios champs or maybe even the world champion. But that's clearly not going to happen, Andy.
Yep. Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho coming in to save the day. Weren't advertised for the show. What more can you say? Not only about the calming influence of Chris Jericho in the locker room, as has been reported recently, but also Jon Moxley being the best guy ever.
Yeah. Well, second best, because the best guy's going to come out at the start of the show with a live microphone. It's going to be very interesting. Hi, Max. Miss you, mate.
Jon Moxley's opening the show, brother. 100%.
I think Daddy Magic should open the show, but I think that every week. So
who wants a taste? We'll cover this stuff about CM Punk's injury before we dive into all this a little bit more, I guess. And we'll be diving into this for months, it feels like.
Indeed.
All right, so there was some rumours going around that CM Punk was injured during the Brawl. That erupted backstage, but per Fightful Select's report, the one that I covered in the first story, sources close to the matter believe that he actually injured himself or injured his triceps while he was wrestling Jon Moxley in the main event, not during the Brawl itself. So he wasn't bandaged up at the scrum, but he did ice the arm for a bit. So there you go.
He was carrying it at the end of the match as well.
Yeah, he was. He was definitely doing that. Sometimes it's often difficult, especially with Punk, who's such a good seller, to differentiate between that kind of stuff. But here you go. We have a report on it. There's no word on the extent of his injuries or anything like that, although it's believed, he was already hurt when he headed into the scrap with the executive vice president. So, right, it's a big cluster F.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a weird way, your world champion being injured is kind of the least of your worries right now for Tony Khan and AEW.
Almost doesn't matter, does it?
I mean, like,
is he going to be world champion?
Oh no, is he going to have to surrender the title? I mean, he might have to anyway, because like you say, people are suggesting that him and Steele could well be. I mean, it feels untenable for these 5 guys to be in a room together, to work together again, but stranger things have happened in wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm withholding I don't want to make any real judgments yet, because it's clear that we have these conflicting accounts of who started it.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the promotion now has to determine where this came from, who was responsible for the flare-up, who threw the first punch, all of that stuff. These are questions that Tony Khan, he needs to exhibit strong leadership with this.
It's going to be interesting, yeah.
Exactly, and he needs to dole out punishments that are, what's the word I'm looking for, that are appropriate for what has happened here. But, going back to all of this, going back to the issues between Punk and Hangman Page and all of that stuff, right? All of this, it seems like, could have been sorted by grown adults having a conversation and working things out. Clearly that hasn't happened. And again, look, human beings are flawed, human beings are complicated, human beings do dumb stuff that they later regret. And sometimes they do dumb stuff and they don't learn a damn thing from it as well. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and go, this guy's wrong, this guy's right. I wasn't in the room, and they haven't taken action yet. They haven't made public any statements, all of that stuff. It's now a pending legal issue as well. According to Dave yesterday. There's a whole lot going on, but we'll continue to cover it as best we can.
And all we can really say is, it's almost, and it's me saying this as well, it's almost definitely not a work.
It's not a work. No, there's zero chance.
Meltzer shot down the amount of people I've seen him say, but what if no. And
I understand why people think that. It's wrestling, but no, guys. Like, there's police, there's legal stuff.
Yes, exactly. And I know, local enforcement authority, this is shoot police investigation
Shoot
stuff.
Police, not work police.
Yes, exactly.
Not the ones that picked up Ronda Rousey a few weeks ago.
Yeah, indeed. It's just a fascinating development. We did a really interesting podcast on this yesterday called All Hell Breaks Loose in AEW. It's available as a podcast. It's also available as a video on this channel if you want to go and check it out. And the Dadleys made some really interesting points, particularly when we start talking about what happens now going forward when it comes to promos, because God forbid we go to this scripted, you have to read this verbatim sort of level of promos in AEW. But at the end of the day, the catalyst for all this has been people, seeing how far they can push it. And we saw what happened with that with Sammy and Eddie, and then obviously this has just really spiraled from there. Not the same situation, but
exactly. I think there's probably a balancing point there, right? Because you should all follow PWO Loss on Twitter, by the way. This guy's got great insight on all things pro wrestling. And he had a really good take on it where it's like, well, when you have this promo style where you can basically say whatever you want to a degree, it does create a more volatile style of pro wrestling. But there's probably a point where you can have that, right? And Sammy Guevara in his statement mentioned that we clear stuff people don't want said in promos and stuff, and that's probably where the problem with him and Eddie came up. But they've all taken responsibility for that now, and that's water under the bridge, it seems.
Yeah.
But there's probably a happy medium where this new talent relations team that's been installed could just get people to sit down and talk. And why does it have to get to this point, man? It's kind of absurd that we have these 30, 40-year-old men or whatever, and we're at this stage over pro wrestling. I like all of the performers involved, but clearly some wrongdoing has occurred here, and it needs to be sorted out.
And that leads nicely, actually, into our final story regarding Hangman Page, who's been near the center of this from the beginning with the, what was it? CM Punk accused him of going into business for himself and references.
Workers' rights, all that. Yep.
And then it just goes from there. But you may have seen a rumor doing the rounds on social media yesterday that he had walked out of AEW. Thankfully, according to PW Insider's Mike Johnson, that is a load of bollocks, basically.
Basura.
It has been fabricated from someone claiming it to be a statement from company founder and CEO Tony Khan. Yeah, it's not real.
It's fake.
It's fake, exactly. Basically, this isn't the case. Any communications, such as Hangman Page has opted to leave AEW, as you may have seen, would be circulated via AEW. Third parties wouldn't be the people to receive this weird AEW letterhead. We're going to use the wrestler's real name, so you think it's a load of bollocks. It's not happened, and I didn't buy it when I first saw it. But in these volatile times, it is understandable that some people see that sort of thing with an AEW logo and go, "Oh, bloody hell!"
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that Mike Johnson moved to debunk this stupid rumor. Hangman wasn't even involved in the fracas, the melee, the brawl, whatever you want to call it. But you can see why he'd be annoyed. His situation with Punk sounds pretty complex, like every other one, and he's friends with he's friends with my dad. Shout out to Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. He's friends with the Elite and Kenny the Bucks. So yeah, you could. It's the kind of thing that you could put two and two together and get five and draw a conclusion on it, right?
No one has left AEW.
Yes.
Yeah, at time of recording.
There you go.
But we will keep you updated on any developments, which will probably happen at about mid-afternoon, just as Andy goes to leave the office. That's normally when it drops.
100%, and you'll be left to do a news video. Everyone else will have left apart from you, and you'll be doing it with a sweaty Billy Gunn action figure.
It'll be very serious and professional, as I always am.
Oh, yeah.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions. At WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. Unsurprisingly, Biggest Joe starts us off saying, "Hi guys, given the last few days and the fallout from All Out," they see what people are using.
Fallout from All Out, baby.
Do we have to worry of a WCW situation for AEW? Too many high-profile names trying to push themselves rather than pushing the company, or do you think it's a short-term implosion that TK will resolve?
So yeah, man, this is a really interesting question, and people will whenever something goes, going back to the promotion's early days, whenever something has gone even slightly wrong in AEW, people have invoked WCW.
Yeah.
Obviously now it's a lot more appropriate because this is a disaster so far. WCW had a rich tapestry of issues, born over many, many years of mismanagement, longer than AEW's been alive, certainly. So I'm reticent to go that far. However, this is a humongous test of Tony Khan's leadership, during which he needs to be stronger than any other point in his run as president. It's clear that the environment at the moment is untenable. Mm-hmm. You cannot have situations like this where top stars are forgoing simple solutions like just making up and getting on with it and letting things fester to this level. So there is absolutely that parallel with WCW. I don't want to call it a complete change of that situation. Interesting report coming out today as well that Tony Schiavone has now been effectively installed as Tony Khan's right-hand man. And he was there for the WCW chaos.
Yes.
So perhaps he'll be a calming influence. Chris Jericho was in the WCW locker room.
Indeed.
Forget how long he's been wrestling for. So, yeah, man, really interesting. So many of these points are going to come up. You know what, Fo? I really, of all the people who have interesting and insightful takes on this situation, I'll just say this: the people whose takes I couldn't care less about are certain people who are largely responsible for WCW's
Yes.
demise and are now, for some reason, popular talking heads in wrestling media.
Indeed, yeah, exactly.
Could not care less.
I think it has been a very lazy stick to beat AEW with back in the day of just like one thing goes wrong and just because they're the opposition to WWE, they're WCW and it makes
their Impact.
And we're guilty of it. We report on that sort of thing, but if it's something that is trending, it's our responsibility to cover that sort of thing as well. But I get it. If it's ever been WCW, right now it's its most WCW.
Sure. There are parallels.
Yes.
100%.
But, yeah, like you say, I'm hoping, as a fan of just wrestling, not as a shill for AEW or a shill for WWE, I like all of it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is a momentary blip because it was all trending so nicely in the right direction.
I mean, for me, man, it depends what's the paycheck look like when it's coming through, Right now, September's paycheck from WWE just dropped, and it's pretty humongous. So, Tony, if you want me to shill for you again, you're going to have to outspend Papa H, and let me tell you, he's a big liberal spender.
Indeed.
So that's how it works, by the way.
That's exactly how wrestling media works.
I can show you the checks.
J.M. Wagner gives us
I got a cheese board once, let me tell you about that.
J.M. Wagner gives us our second question of the day.
Charcuterie.
I like this. He writes, hello, kings of respected objects. There we go.
Oh, very nice. By the way, I'll speak about that later, actually.
Survivor Series, which do you want to happen? Roman versus the only other male champion, Braun Breaker. Or a traditional Survivor Series match of the Bloodline with Sami versus a team of 5 led by Drew.
Oh, man. So, right. My goodness, how do I even consider fantasy booking Survivor Series after this week, right?
Woo!
It's been such a crazy period because Clash was so awesome. I thought All Out was really great as well, and then Chaos. So I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, but out of the options you've put forth, I think both of them are good, don't get me wrong. But I really like the Bloodline idea. I really like the Bloodline and Sami.
Old-fashioned Survivor Series.
Hell yeah, let's get back to that, man. Let's get rid of T-shirt time. Don't get me wrong, I think Roman versus Braun would be super fun. But yeah, that's a great idea. Drew and a gang of baby faces. Yeah, you can put Kevin Owens in there. Yeah. You could do some interesting stuff with him and Sami. It's a great idea, man. Tremendous. Fantastic.
Doesn't even have to be all babyface. Imagine Kevin Owens or Drew trying to recruit Gunther because he just what he did to Sheamus.
Yeah, and then recruit Sheamus because he's a badass, and then you have that tension. Drew's obviously
it's
old.
Really easy rather than making people red and blue flipping T-shirts.
You know what? I'd have been really happy if Sheamus won the Clash. I'm not saying it's a bad booking decision, but I'd have been really happy if he won.
I mean, after looking at that chest, he bloody deserved.
Yeah, the pop would have been so awesome. I don't think Gunther winning's a bad idea. Please don't misconstrue this.
Hold that belt till WrestleMania for me. But yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, Gunther's president Gunther. I call him a different name every time. His presentation has been so great.
Yeah, they've nailed it.
And that match flipping ruled.
Senor Benja gives us our final question of the day. Writing, since Clash at the Castle was a huge hit, which other European city or stadium would you want to have a big WWE show, in part to justify your bosses giving you a group trip? I think a stadium show in Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu could be a hit.
That'd be tremendous. Well, obviously I'm biased, so I would say Scotland. But the problem with Scotland is, right, okay, first of all, Hampden sucks. The National Stadium absolutely sucks. You're a mile away from the centre of the action. There's a stupid running track around it, particularly if you're in one of the curved sections behind where the football goals would be. You are miles away.
Is that where you played Ukraine in that qualifier we watched?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. It just sucks as a stadium. Murrayfield would be the other option, the rugby stadium in Edinburgh, which is a good shout. But you're in Scotland, there's no roof, it might rain. Not that other cities are impervious to rain or whatever. So I'm going to say Berlin because it's the best city in the world. It's a metropolis. It has incredible infrastructure and links. It's the best city in the world. It's the best city in the world. And I want to go there again on holiday, and this would be a great excuse. You could put it, it's got a number of different stadiums. You could do it in the Olympic Stadium, which holds 80,000 people. Yeah. And German football fans are insanely great, and I'm sure they'd be the same for wrestling.
Prost. I love a night out in Berlin. I am going to give you a selection. All right. Because the Santiago Bernabeu is obviously a good suggestion. Camp Nou.
Camp Nou. Really? They could sell like 100,000 tickets for that, man.
Exactly.
Crazy.
I'm going to pick the San Siro because I went there to watch Milan once, and it was wild. Although that kind of suffers that it is miles outside of Milan, but I love Milan as well. And I gotta show you Amsterdam. I bloody love Amsterdam.
The Ajax Arena.
Oh, yes.
Arena. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Plus, just a work trip to Amsterdam would be absolute carnage.
Fantastic, wouldn't it? There's so many great cities you can go to, man. That'd be really cool. I'd love this.
Copenhagen as well. Copenhagen.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you cope?
Riga. Oh, Riga. Oh, I loved it.
Go and see Skonto Riga.
Take me back to my 20s, this is.
I don't know. Dog of Riga, that's a football team.
Yeah.
Yeah, we beat
Rome, anywhere in Italy.
Yeah. A lot of these Italian stadiums do have the running track, which means they can have more floor seats, but if you're in the stand, you're going to be further back. So it's an interesting conundrum.
Let's just go to Ireland. I bloody love Dublin. The biggest city in the world.
Big arena as well.
Because it's always Dublin. Let's move on to today's and finally, and an eel update.
Big eel update.
At Joe Regan 11 on Twitter, we were asking about this, and Joe's got in touch. Apparently, the eel, good news, is doing great and has made a new friend, as you can see here. I mean, yeah. Regular eel updates, as Phil Chambers suggested to Joe. Thank you very much for getting in touch with this, Joe.
Yeah, this rules. Like, I didn't notice Joe had tweeted a couple of times over the weekend about the eel, so I didn't see them because my notifications have been absurd, as you can imagine. But yeah, I follow Joe now, so I'll get all the eel updates. We can let you know how he's getting on. There he is with a nice dog. The eel's brother, the eel, is due to arrive anytime soon, so we can have the eels can send each other postcards.
An eel tag team.
Eel tag team. Shouts to Joe. As he came up at the show and he had an eel t-shirt on, and I was like, my brother, you have to have him. Great stuff.
That's for you, Joe.
For those about to eel, we salute you. Eel-C, deal-C.
Hopefully the new eel will be here in time for Wacky Friday, which we haven't had for ages.
I might do a live unboxing. Live unboxing of the eel's
brother.
Imagine
he's wearing a hat in the box. Cowboy hat.
Cowboy eel. Oh my god. Is he like the new Hangman Page?
Well, we'll have to wait and see after this week's Dynamite.
Riding the horse to the ring.
Do
you know what Michael Hamlet has told me has been announced for tonight's Dynamite?
What's that?
The eel addresses his enemies. Interesting. Doing the gang sign like Eddie Kingston.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to AEW Dynamite tonight for a variety of different reasons.
Box office tonight, man.
Woo!
Could be a disaster.
Yep.
Could be incredible. I don't think it's going to be anything in between.
It will be unforgettable one way or another.
120%.
Let us know your booking decisions for it in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. We'll be previewing AEW Dynamite after we have reviewed NXT DP a little bit later on today. Plus, you got to let us know your thoughts, Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Watch there, follow both of us. Follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for hey. We are indeed having another nice quiet week here in the Wrestleverse.
Oh, you can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy, to the Eel, thanks to Joe, and to you for watching us. And we will see you soon.
Eels.